Hi, welcome back to Avoiding Burnout. We are going to part three. Please have your printed material ready. We are going to talk about the causes today of burnout. And really, there are so many things that invade us on a daily basis. And so it's not just one cause that leads to burnout. It's usually an accumulation of time and stress and things that are built up and accumulate, meaning they kind of like pair up and start multiplying because it's just too much with one thing. So it may not be just one item that you're going to be able to identify. It may be a combination of things. And we're complex people, and our lives are complex, so it would make sense that our causes of burnout would also be complex. All right, the first one I would like you to write down is that we have too many commitments. We have our home life, we have our maybe our clubs and church involvement. Maybe we have extended family obligations, but we have too many commitments. When we look at or in the sense of this COVID time, we may have an overwhelming sense of having to do it all ourselves and not being able to rely on other people. So we haven't simplified our lives very well. And when I look at my calendar, sometimes I'm like, oh no, I need to start saying no more often. That's a good healthy thing too, is to say no. Learn to say no. There are too many commitments in our lives. We can't buy buy our lives. God gave us two hands, and we're not jugglers. I wasn't trained to be a juggler. I don't know if you're a professional juggler, but I really think that a couple of handfuls of things. That's why I said 10 items. We have 10 fingers, 10 items, two handfuls. I really just want you to focus on the priorities. And if we have too many commitments or too many things that are pulling us in different directions, then it is important for us to simplify. So, look at too much planning are not enough planning. And I speak from experience with this. Over planning, I believe, is just as detrimental to our just our state of well-being as not enough planning. We might be disorganized and running around like a chicken with our head cut off. And I think if we're too rigid, we run the risk of having the same amount of stress just coming from a different direction. So we need to find a happy balance between too much planning and not enough planning. I have over the years grown to be very organized. I have places for most everything in my life because I'm not naturally organized. I have to compensate for this repeatedly. And when I haven't compensated for my lack of organizational skills, it's uh, it's been very, very stressful for me. It's just drained me of a lot of energy. But then when I become too rigid and I kind of swing the pendulum back to the other extreme, it could be equally as stressful, just in a different way. All right, housework is definitely a cause of burnout. Um, Having, you know, just so much work to do and not feeling like you ever get ahead, and there are constant distractions, and you never feel like you can focus on one task because there are little people who need you and demands that we have no control over. And then amid the moment when you're trying to clean and you're trying to get on top of it, and then somebody spills something, somebody's sticky, someone gets muddy outside. Your husband calls right at the most inopportune moments to ask you to do a favor for him. These are things that actually work to distract us from housework. One of my biggest handicaps in housework is the fact that I don't like doing it. You will never find housework on anywhere on my top 10 lists of anything, ever. Do I like a clean house? Absolutely. But I am not a naturally organized housekeeper. So my realization is that I have to simplify a lot, and I pay my children well to keep up with the housework. That's just a reality of my life. But yeah, housework can be one, especially if you have a house that isn't well organized, or that maybe feels too small for your family, or is not. We've had times when we had to not even unpack because we were in the process of moving to another place, and so it was just kind of our temporary housing, and everything was overwhelming at that time. All right, this is key: poor eating habits and a poor exercise plan. I don't particularly like to exercise either. Yes, I like to eat whatever I like to eat, but I also know that when I'm eating healthy, getting plenty of fruits and vegetables, and I have a somewhat organized exercise plan, whether it's a stationary bicycle or walking around the block with the baby, whatever it is, bicycling as a family, um, having an outlet to go to the gym, whatever it has been really good. When my children were very young, I did videos early in the morning before they woke up. I did a lot of Pilates and just things that were core strengthening because you're lifting babies all day long, you're bending over a lot. I did things that were just relaxing, yoga. Different times, different seasons of my life have given me different motivations for exercise and how it worked into our family time. But yes, definitely eating well, not eating well, and not exercising can inhibit so many areas of our lives, mentally, physically, spiritually. All right. Some of the other causes is that we're not allowed time for any personal time. That may be for hobbies, that may be just to sit quietly. I mean, I think reading's a hobby. To read, to do anything that is for ourselves. And so sometimes I believe that we need we need an identity apart. We need parts, not a full identity, but we need parts of our personality and our identity to be separate from mothering or being a spouse or from being just a member of a family. Sometimes we just need a little bit of mental escape for personal time, whatever that looks like. Mine usually, I was usually able to do most of my hobbies with my children. I could sew with my children. I could sit and do a lot of toy making and doll making and things like that with my children. I do crochet and knitting and things like that. But if you have a hobby that's not really kid friendly, then I encourage you to, uh, you know, figure out, because that's probably contributing to, your need for personal time is probably contributing to your feelings right now, to your thoughts and feelings. All right, another one is isolation. This has been crucial for the past 12 months. We have been isolated. We are not in our normal routines. Given that, becoming a homeschooler is can be isolating as well. And we have to be extremely um, intentional about getting fed in different ways socially. Um, when I was a full time teacher and I came home to be a full time mom, this was a little while before we began homeschooling. I felt very isolated from my work friends, isolated from even our family members who might have had different time restraints and that we weren't able to get together very often. And the same thing has happened, when for many families when they begin homeschooling because they no longer have the school social aspect of their school friends, and they no longer have the maybe the built-in social structure of whatever other choices that they were doing schooling their kids before. So isolation can be a really big factor sometimes in in causing that burnout, because we do need those different interactions with different folks. All right. A lack of intimacy. This kind of goes with isolation in the sense of intimacy with her friendships and, really close ties. And maybe you were able to lunch with your friends on a regular basis before you started homeschooling, but now you can't do that. So Lack of intimacy, though, also in our relationships with our significant others. I have to have quiet time with my husband. I have to have intimacy in the sense of our relationship. I need to know that we're on the same team. Physical intimacy is a real part of our parenting, it's a real part of our marriage. And I know that when we have had seasons of our marriage that we were not on the same page, that there was strife with our children, there was stress with his work situation, lots of different times when intimacy just wasn't there. And if you're already feeling isolated and withdrawn and not filled up and just really spent, it's so hard to muster one more bit of yourself to have intimacy in your relationships, whether it's with friends or with your spouse. Boredom. We're doing the same thing every single day. Saturdays and Sundays don't really look that much different with homeschooling. Kids are all home. Holidays look a whole lot like that too. We do the same thing over and over again, kind of like Groundhog's Day, the movie, where you wake up and it feels like you're in the same scenario every single day. You lose track of days. There are days where you're just like, wait a minute, what day of the week is it? Because you've done the same thing how many days in a row, months in a row, sometimes years in a row. But we do need some stimulation. We're human. We need things to be interesting. We need things to be new. We like a little spark of something in our daily routine. We really like to look forward to things. I will tell you that if my husband says, "Hey, do you want to go?" I'm all over that. Like you don't even know the excitement that I feel. And it could be a year in advance. It could be 6 months in advance. It could be a decade in advance, but I have something to look forward to. And so the routine of my life isn't as boring anymore. It's pretty amazing. All he has to do is say, "Hey, do you want to?" And it's pretty amazing how the boredom button just, snaps off. Depression. This can be an incredible cause of a buildup over time can cause depression. Health issues can cause depression. Insurmountable stress over time can cause depression. Also, chronic pain and chemical imbalances. The roller coaster of my decade of having babies, nursing babies, all rolled over into our homeschooling commitment. Depression is a real thing, and it can in itself be a reason that we're overwhelmed. But most of the time, it's just a factor because we're getting treatment, we're getting therapy, we're having a plan of on the days where we just aren't really functioning at 100%. We have support. All of these things are internally, should make for depression to be managed. And I believe that if it's in conjunction with many of these other causes, that it's just going to grow and uh, become too much. Exhaustion. Much like eating well and exercising, we also need to get plenty of rest. I know that that's hard, especially when you have little people who don't sleep or who you're trying to get a lot of stuff done while they are sleeping and you're not really taking care of your needs. I will tell you that my most rigid years of bedtimes were when my children were asleep. And I went to bed when whoever told me, whatever wise woman told me, sleep when your babies sleep, I took them literally and I slept as much as I possibly could when they slept. Now, it might have been shorter periods, it might have been, a little cat nap here and there, but I slept when I could. Even when I had older children, I tried to have very structured bedtimes for myself. I will honestly say that as my children got older, they would put themselves to bed, but mom needed specific sleep patterns. And in college, I had done some sleep studies in my psychology and my counseling classes, and they were incredibly convincing that what kind of hours I need. Now, I only need 6 hours of sleep a night to function fully. That's me. Some people need 8. Some people would really love 10 a night. That wasn't feasible for me, and I knew even just for myself that I can function with 6 hours of sleep. So exhaustion is a real thing. When my children were very young, I was so sleep deprived, and my cycles of depression have been because of chronic pain and have been because of sleep deprivation. Um, when my children were really young, thankfully, I had other moms who recognized that in me, mom friends, older, more experienced mom friends who were like, I'll take the kids today for you. I'll take the kids for a couple hours. You can go home and take a nap. Um, that was usually at the end of pregnancies and just times where I couldn't function. And we didn't live near my family, so I did rely sometimes on friends to help me out with my children because it was that important. It was that important, and they recognized that because they'd been there, they'd already experienced that. Another thing with exhaustion is that because of sleep deprivation, when before I needed my gallbladder taken out, I didn't sleep. And I was a crazy woman, and I was overwhelmed, and I was burned out, and I was done with everything. And I know that was a medical condition that needed to be treated. And once that was treated and I was healed, yes, I was able to sleep again. These are key factors to what I know personally have caused my times of burnout. All right. We also have, I added mental health to depression because I believe that the mental health aspect of it is uh, really, really important. Um, it's not just depression, like clinical depression, but it's also just our mental health in general and figuring out that and not having sometimes outlets to go and see a counselor or to delve into therapy when it's needed. Pressure and stress, just general pressure and stress, finances, maybe extended family is, there are things going on in your extended family. Maybe that there's stress that's coming into the household. Like I said before, when my husband had a lot of stress at work, that impacted um, the whole entire household. And if you're feeling these negative thoughts I mean you're having these negative thoughts and you're feeling these negative feelings and they're just growing and they feel insurmountable, then that impacts the entire dynamic of your household. And when we have all of these components and they just keep building and building and building, that's when we hit a wall. Worry. Worry can be a cause of burnout. We are consumed. Maybe we have anxiety. Maybe we are just strung out. And again, like I will get very negative thoughts about things. Like it's always the cup is half empty instead of it being half full. And the worry of for my children, for their health, for finances, for work, like whatever it is, the worry just builds and builds and builds. And it seems like it's one worried thought connects to another worried thought, connects to another worried thought. All right, business or busyness. We own our own business and we have now for several years. We've been working for ourselves, but that business, even when my husband was working not independently, not as his own company, um, business and the demands of business and the cycles of the year business played a huge role in the dynamics of our household and how we managed that time, whether it was demands that he had to be away from home during that time, or maybe that uh, financially, there were financial worries because of the business. Many of us have our own businesses on the side. We're homeschoolers, we're moms full time, we're doing these things, and then we got this side gig. And the side gig can be really fun and it can be an outlet and it can be a lot of really good things. And maybe it does bring in an income into the house. And suddenly, it can be, it can add to the causes of burnout. Like we just can't give ourselves, we're just pulled really thin. But then there's also the busyness. And this is just like we're not being efficient time managers. We are not being focused. We are not giving tasks very short, bite size increments of ourselves, and we're just busy. We're just busy. I am not a I mean, if somebody says, "Hey, are you busy?" I try to say, "No, I'm not busy," unless I'm like, "No, I'm tutoring right now," or I am, on the phone or whatever, or I'm writing, whatever it may be. But busyness is a mindset. And some people just feel so overwhelmed by the duties of their day because they haven't planned well, because they really don't structure their time. They're not respectful of the time that they've allotted to it. And there are just some handicapping issues to the idea that I'm so busy. Yes, let me tell you that we're all busy, that we're all in very similar situations, and we're all kind of running around sometimes. But the busyness is something that is controllable and to help us manage our daily lives better. All right, discontentment. This is my last one. Discontentment is really something that we do have a little bit of control over personally. Someone else can't make us feel discontentment. But again, like worry, it seems to be like this little chain reaction, like they're little connections. So discontentment may be, well, I didn't get my way on this thing. I'm dissatisfied with this. I was impatient with these people. I didn't get my way. I I don't have the time that I want to commit to things, and discontentment seems to grow and just harbor a little bit, like just kind of festers a little bit, discontentment. And for me, I realized very quickly that when we're comparing, I'm going to be discontented. I'm not going to have any level of satisfaction if I'm constantly comparing myself to things that are, um, you know, uh, not as nice as I would like them to be. And I have many unmet expectations of, you know, my life or my home or my lifestyle, my kids. Uh, Discontentment can just breed really, really easily and add to the overwhelming feeling of burnout. So, these are 15 causes of burnout. And again, they're not just one thing's going to cause you to burn out, but the accumulation of a few of these things mixed in together, set to simmer, lets it start, really gelling in there. And those are ways that lead these are things that lead to burnout. So, we're going to pick up with part 4 next time we're together, and I look forward to going over some of the ways that we can avoid and overcome this burnout.